By the 99th minute of the World Cup final, Luis de la Fuente had replaced 6 Spanish starters. Mikel Oyarzabal and Fabian Ruiz were taken off shortly after the hour mark. Alex Baena and Dani Olmo followed, and by extra time, even Aymeric Laporte and eventual Golden Ball winner Rodri had been removed. Lamine Yamal was the player he refused to take off the pitch. He was 19 years old, had arrived at the tournament carrying a hamstring injury, and entered the final with 1 goal and 0 assists. Yet De La Fuente kept him on for all 120 minutes, while changing almost the entire attack and midfield around him. That decision gives a better indication of Lamine's importance than his final numbers. Spain's opponents repeatedly sent 2 defenders towards him. Uruguay sometimes used 3. Fullbacks moved wider, midfielders left central positions, and opposing wingers were forced deep into their own half. Stopping Lamine became a collective responsibility, and Spain benefited from every defender he pulled towards the right side. Lamine Yamal entered his first World Cup carefully. The hamstring problem he carried from the end of Barcelona's season meant that De La Fuente would leave him out against Cape Verde. Spain dominated possession and created enough chances to win, but Cape Verde remained incredibly organized. Their defensive line stayed compact, and Spain struggled to consistently force defenders away from their positions. Lamine entered the match in the 71st minute, and his introduction immediately changed the shape of the game. Cape Verde's left back was forced to defend wider, while the nearest midfielder became more conscious of helping whenever Lamine received the ball. Spain still disappointingly drew 0-0, but the game clearly became less comfortable. Lamine returned to the starting team against Saudi Arabia and scored after 10 minutes. It would be the only goal contribution he would register throughout the whole tournament. By the end of the World Cup, he had attempted 27 shots, the 3rd highest total of any player. He also completed 35 dribbles, more than Mbappe, Messi, Vinny Jr., and every other player at the tournament. 1 goal from 27 attempts shows his finishing was far below his usual level, but it does not explain why opponents still treated him as one of Spain's greatest threats. Lamine normally receives close to the right touchline. Starting that wide stretches the defensive line and gives him enough room to face the opposing fullback. That defender has several problems to solve at once, and his goal against Benfica in the Champions League shows what can happen when he is left isolated. Lamine receives on the touchline with the fullback completely alone. He takes a few simple touches straight towards the defender, quickly shifts his weight, and cuts inside before the defender can recover. With no second defender close enough to protect the inside, Lamine reaches a dangerous position where he can cross towards the back post, or, in this case, curl the ball into the top corner. World Cup opponents knew that danger still existed, even while he was returning from injury and struggling to convert his chances. Most teams moved another player towards him before he could turn the duel into a shooting opportunity. The nearest midfielder or winger would block the inside route, allowing the fullback to defend the touchline more aggressively. That reduced Lamine's space, but it also removed a defender from somewhere else. When a midfielder moved across to help the fullback, one of Spain's central players became available inside. Dani Olmo, Ruiz, or Pedri could receive in a space that player had just left. If the center back moved towards Lamine's channel, Oyarzabal or Ferran Torres gained more room through the middle. When the entire block shifted towards Spain's right, Rodri could quickly move possession towards the opposite side, where Alex Baena or Nico Williams faced fewer defenders. Pedro Porro benefited as well. The second defender was usually focused on preventing Lamine from cutting inside, which created opportunities for Porro to overlap beyond the fullback or receive behind the first line of pressure. Lamine did not always need to beat the double team. He could keep both defenders near the touchline, return a simple pass, and allow Spain to attack through the space beside him. The group match against Uruguay gives a much clearer example of what doubling Lamine gave Spain elsewhere. For most of the game, Uruguay rarely left him isolated, but in the 62nd minute, Lamine finally receives in one of the few genuine one-on-one situations he was given. Lamine drives at the defender, and the moment he cuts towards his left foot, the inside midfielder gravitates towards the ball, and the center back shifts across to protect against the shot. Notice with all of the attention focused on Lamine's threat, Dani Olmo is left in a huge pocket of space beside him. Lamine recognizes it and releases the simple pass, but Olmo rushes the opportunity and sends it off target. The chance disappears because he misses, but Spain created exactly the opening they would have wanted. One of the rare moments where Uruguay left Lamine one-on-one immediately drew several defenders towards him, leaving Olmo almost completely free. Lamine only had to threaten the shot for the defensive shape to change around him. Leaving him isolated gave him the chance to create for himself, while sending help towards him gave someone else the space to finish the attack. His tournament-leading dribble total mattered because Spain regularly faced compact defensive blocks. Their midfield could control possession and move opponents across the pitch, but passing alone did not always force defenders out of position. Lamine gave Spain another route forward because he could disrupt the defensive shape himself. His chance against Belgium in the quarterfinal was one of the clearest examples. The pass is heading out to Lamine on the wing, and he immediately spots that the fullback's momentum is carrying him towards the outside, allowing Lamine to drop his weight and cut past him immediately. The winger steps across to help, and it looks like Lamine has the space to attack the byline. That's until he feints outside, shifts his weight, then cuts past a second player. A midfielder quickly shifts across to close him down, leaving 3 Belgian players completely focused on Lamine and creating space for the teammates around him. Against Uruguay, Lamine released a simple pass to Olmo from a similar position. This time, he uses the gap and shoots towards the near post, but unfortunately hits the side netting. The finish lets him down in the end, but the sequence still shows us why his dribbling remains so valuable. Within seconds, Lamine had beaten 2 players and pulled a third towards the ball. That movement created space for Spain around him, even though he chose to shoot rather than use it. His final decision could have been better, but the defensive advantage had already been created. When Lamine lost possession, Spain usually had enough players nearby to counterpress before the opponent could escape. That reduced the cost of an unsuccessful dribble, and Lamine could keep attacking defenders because the team was prepared for both outcomes. His influence also helped defensively, with opposing left-backs reluctant to advance and wide midfielders often forced to help. Spain's opponents always had fewer players available to counterattack if they did win the ball. Lamine helped Spain create chances, maintain pressure, and keep teams deeper than they wanted to defend. He was named man of the match in Spain's quarterfinal victory over Belgium despite failing to score. The defenders he beat and the attention he attracted explain why his performance was valued beyond what goal contributions show. But the clearest evidence arrived in Spain's final 2 matches. Lamine created the vital opening goal of the semifinal without receiving an assist, and 5 days later, De La Fuente trusted him to play every minute of the World Cup final. France had prepared to prevent Dean from becoming isolated against Lamine. For the first 20 minutes of the semi-final, their left side remained alert to his positioning. Then, one vulnerable touch gave Lamine the opening he had been waiting for. The ball is crossed in by Cucurella, but floats beyond the danger in the box towards Dean. He jumps to cushion it with his head, and Lamine instantly spots the opening. Dean's touch loops into the air, and Lamine sprints towards the ball. Under pressure, Dean panics and tries to clear it, but Lamine throws himself into the challenge and wins the penalty. Oyarzabal calmly converts, giving Spain the lead on their way to a 2-0 victory over one of the tournament favorites. Lamine receives no official assist, but his reaction ultimately leads to the opening goal in a crucial World Cup semi-final. A single loose touch or delayed recovery could give him enough time to change the match. Argentina entered the final knowing that Lamine could still provide that same threat. Tagliafico defended the position extremely well and finished as one of Argentina's strongest performers, but he still had to remain disciplined for all 120 minutes. Spain began making attacking changes in the 62nd minute. Ferran Torres replaced Oyarzabal while Pedri came on for Ruiz. Williams and Marino replaced Baena and Olmo in the 75th minute. Then, when extra time began, De La Fuente also removed Rodri and Laporte. The striker changed, the opposite winger changed, both advanced midfielders changed, and Spain's captain changed, but De La Fuente refused to take off Lamine. Lamine continued holding the right side while fresher players entered around him. For a player who had just turned 19 and entered the tournament managing a hamstring injury, playing the entire final was a significant decision. A tired Lamine was still valuable because Argentina could not stop accounting for what might happen if he received a loan. Tagliafico could not freely advance into midfield, and the nearest midfielder still had to be ready to support him. Argentina could not completely compress the center without leaving the switch towards Lamine available. He continued creating danger as the match wore on, and near the end of normal time, his free kick dramatically forced Martinez into a flying save. Spain eventually scored the decisive goal in the 106th minute when Nico Williams' header set up Ferran Torres. 2 substitutes combined for the winning goal, but Lamine was the attacking constant De La Fuente chose to preserve. His finishing was below his normal level, and some promising attacks ended with the wrong decision. 1 goal from 27 shots undoubtedly left room for improvement, but his overall impact for Spain was immensely positive. No player completed more dribbles, and opponents repeatedly adjusted their defensive structure around his threat. The help sent towards his side constantly resulted in space for his teammates. The clearest evidence came from those making decisions on the pitch. Opposition defenders rarely trusted a single player to cover him in isolation. Luis de la Fuente kept him on for all 120 minutes of the World Cup final. That's despite his age, his recent injury, and all of the attacking options available to replace him. Lamine may have finished the World Cup with what seems like an underwhelming 1 goal and 0 assists. But in the end, Lamine Yamal ends up holding the trophy for a reason.